Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
The Jacksonville Jaguars got stomped on Monday Night Football, and seismic changes could be coming. Also, the Bengals defense completely collapsed against the Commanders. And is Sam Darnold the early front runner to win NFL MVP? Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Place your first $5 bet and you'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
There's going to 0-3, and then there's what happened on Monday night to the Jacksonville Jaguars, getting stampeded by Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills, a 47-10 beatdown on national television. Tony Wiggins from Locked On Jaguars and the new Locked On NFL host joins me now. And Tony, you once told me this Jaguars team didn't have any hind parts. They're still looking for them because the Bills just beat them off them on Monday night.
No sand in their pocket whatsoever, man. They ain't got nothing going on, bro. It's wild. I mean, a head should roll. I would not be surprised if they have already decided after the night that people are going to get fired. It's just that bad.
What kind of people? What is the recourse at this point? Are we talking about Doug Peterson right now already?
I'm talking about Doug Peterson and Trent Baalke. His owner has given them everything, and he probably gave them too much. They've spent more money than anybody. They've had high draft picks ever since Trent Baalke took this team over, and they have gotten worse. So I look at it like this. They won 9 games 2 years in a row, right? We can't even pay attention to that. You have to ask yourself right now, with that team you saw tonight, is Doug Peterson the guy that's going to take them out of that? He's not. I mean, they look lost. This is the second week in a row, and this is 3 weeks into the season. This isn't like this is week 14. This is week 3, and they already look lifeless when they come out of the locker room. This is the second consecutive game this has happened, and they don't have any answers. They shrug their shoulders. Doug says stuff like, we've been together too long for this to happen. Trevor says, we suck right now, and you saw it firsthand. They stink.
And this after the owner comes out and says this is the best collection of talent that the Jaguars have had. And also after an offseason when you pay Trevor Lawrence at the top of the market. And I think that is where, along with Doug Peterson, to be sure, Jaguars fans and the greater NFL the fandom they've been out on Trent Baalke for a while, I think. But now it seems like Trevor Lawrence is getting heat in ways that maybe he hadn't before now.
Yeah, of course he is. And I wouldn't even say that it's not warranted, because there's a lot that comes with having the stadium named after you for a week. And there's a lot that comes with being placed on billboards. And I see that's the problem. You go back to the Super Bowl and they talked to Tony Khan, the owner's son, and they talked to him about wrestling. They didn't talk about football operations. They didn't talk about what really matters. Mm-hmm. And what really matters is the culture, the football, blocking, tackling. They don't do any of that. They do all the social media stuff very well. They do all of the ancillary things around the football team well, but if you can't hide when it comes to getting between those lines, because those are gladiators and they are going to make you pay for the fact that you can't block and you can't tackle. And I don't care how many coordinators you bring in. I don't care how many players from other teams that you admittedly bring in because they came from winning organizations. Just think about that. You got to buy leadership. That's a problem. You should have it in you. You shouldn't have to buy it. And the problem is they need a total reset and they need a real football operation going on here in Jacksonville, because right now they don't have it.
Is there anything that leads you to believe at least some of the answers are in-house, that they can get better play from some of these guys because of something we've seen in the past? Or is this reached the point of no return, do you think?
Oh, if you're talking about the offensive line, yeah, they can get better play. You got to give them a 38 and a baseball bat and some brass knuckles. That might help them. But other than that, hell no, they ain't going to get no better. Peter, don't hold your head, brother. I'm telling the truth. I've been watching this for a couple of years. I mean, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. You got teams around the league you got organizations and people that have been in place for a year and they're doing better than this. They have had everything at their fingertips, at their beck and call. And this is the product they put on the field after week 3. They are tied for the worst record in the National Football League. And they go to Houston next week. They're going to get another whooping. It ain't going to get no better. This is what it is, bro.
Stay up to date on the Jacksonville Jaguars all year long by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Jaguars on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Coming up, the Cincinnati Bengals have fallen to 0-3. Before we get to that, one of the best college football games of the season is on the horizon. You've heard us talk a lot about FanDuel, America's #1 sports book. Well, we have something a little different for you. Now through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can bet $5 and get a 3-week free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with a YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out-of-market game. All you need is a Google account and a current form of payment, plus you can cancel anytime. For that $5 bet, you can take a look at some Week 4 lines. The red-hot Minnesota Vikings are 2.5-point road dogs against the Green Bay Packers this Sunday. Could an official return from Jordan Love give bettors more confidence in Green Bay at home? Meanwhile, the Chicago Bears favored. Yes, you heard that correctly. Favored by 2.5 against the LA Rams. I know the Rams' entire roster is on IR, but we all saw what they did against San Francisco. No? So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook. Are you watching Fox Sports or ESPN on your TV all day? Have to turn down the volume with all that shouting? Make the switch to Locked On Sports Today, a free 24/7 sports streaming channel programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. There's an absolutely loaded slate this weekend in college football. Saturday will mark the first time this season that at least 4 top 25 matchups are on the schedule. However, no game as important as Alabama, Georgia. The #4 Bulldogs travel to Tuscaloosa for the first time since 2020 and are 1.5-point road favorites. The Crimson Tide have been favored in 90 straight home games dating back to 2007 and will need a heroic performance to break Georgia's 42-game regular season win streak.
And I think first, the one that a lot of people are going to think about is Georgia D versus Bama O, and we may get into that a little later, but I think that's a little too obvious. I think the more interesting matchup may be Georgia's O against Bama's D, because, we kind of know Bama's explosive, and we also know Georgia's always got a great defense. So that's of course going to be a great matchup. But the Georgia offense against Bama defense may tell the tale of this game.
The Knicks just received some tough injury news. Starting center Mitchell Robinson hasn't recovered from left foot surgery and won't be back until December at the earliest. The 26-year-old missed 50 games last season after suffering an ankle injury and was re-injured again during the playoffs. This after the Knicks lost their backup big man, Isaiah Hartenstein, in the offseason. Chargers safety Derwin James suspended for what the NFL called repeated violations of playing rules intended to protect the health and safety of players. James made, quote, forcible contact with Steelers tight end Pat Freiermuth's helmet on Sunday. According to reports, James is expected to appeal the suspension. Over on the diamond, the Astros look to clinch their 7th consecutive AL West title in the last 7 full seasons.
I was actually combing through your comments as I was getting ready for the show. And look, I'm the always positive, always Stros guy. And I try to keep it 100 as well. You just knew going into this game without having without having Yordan Alvarez in the lineup, your offense became less potent. But look, Bryce Miller, this dude just pitches well. Every time he pitches against us, he is one of their better pitchers. And the lone bright spot's Hunter Brown. Look, I'm not going to go through. Look, you guys know where to find me, Ishtown Wheelhouse. You know where to find Eric. You know where to find the show. Apple, Google, Spotify. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Help us get to 20,000 subscribers. But look, the Astros did one thing. They kept the playoff hopes alive for the Mariners, because now they're a 1.5 games out of the wild card, the final spot. So the Mariners are definitely gunning for us. And tomorrow we've got Logan Gilbert to face, so it doesn't get any easier.
The Cincinnati Bengals have serious problems on their hands. The Washington Commanders, led by rookie quarterback Jaden Daniels, absolutely dominated the Bengals defense in a 38-33 home loss. Cincinnati hasn't started a season 0-3 since their 2-14 campaign in 2019. Locked On Bengals host James Rapien and Jake Liscow discussed the team's horrible start.
James, this was an embarrassing effort from a defense that might have one NFL quality. Maybe that's not quite fair. I think, Chris Jenkins was okay tonight. The defensive line is a problem. It is the root of their issues on defense. To me, it was the root of why they could not get a single stop, and they could have won this game, but they could not get a single stop all night.
No, none. The clock stopped them at half and gave them a breather, just for the special teams to let Austin Eckler return a huge kickoff and set the momentum for the third quarter. Yeah, it was just awful. I mean, the defense was awful. You know what it looked like? It looked like when you're playing against someone in Madden that just isn't used to playing defense, and it's like, all right, well, the first of 40 is going to win, and the first one to make a mistake is going to win. And the Bengals literally couldn't force them into making any mistakes. A field goal, which put them up by 2 scores, felt like a huge win. And that's just wild. And yet that's the reality that they faced tonight. And there was a mixture. It was explosive plays in the passing game. It was long drives that just take the clock right out of it. And especially in the fourth quarter, some really great throws and great plays by Jaden Daniels. There was a mixture, missed tackles and just no playmaking ability. 2nd and 9. Well, the Commanders get 8 yards. Well, now they're converting. You got them 2nd and 9. You can't give up 8 yards. And I felt like that happened like 12 times tonight. And they continuously saw 3rd and short, and then converted 3 4th downs, 4th and short. You could not get off the field, couldn't make plays. That's the story, because the offense was making plays. And it never felt like they were going to win that game. It never truly. Now, were there times where I had some hope that they were going to be able to turn things around? Sure, no doubt about it, because the offense kept them in it. But this defense, that is the story. Because if the defense plays like that, they're not beating maybe any teams, as I think about this, probably any teams in the NFL.
I mean, it's as bad as you can be on defense, literally getting no stops. A few crazy stats about this game. The one that I like is that, where did it go? I just had it. Since 1920, Taylor Cornell had this tweet. Teams that have 0 turnovers, 0 points, and score at least 33 points had never lost a game, according to his stat head search. 112-0. After tonight, it's 113-1 because the Commanders did it and won, and the Bengals didn't do it and lost. This comes a week after the Chiefs had the first win by a team that went for less than 300 yards, gave up 21 points or more, had 3 or more turnovers, and converted 18% or less of their 3rd downs. So the Bengals on two ones of very crazy stats in terms of incomplete football games. And that's what this was. This was a defensive meltdown of massive proportions. The Washington Commanders had 22 first downs on 57 plays, only 9 third downs faced in the game. And as you mentioned, when they got to those third downs and they got the stops, they went for it on 3 4th downs and converted all of them without too much drama. And that's one of the more frustrating things about this game, is there wasn't any apparent difficulty in what Washington was doing outside of their yards per carry, which were much lower than I think either of us would have expected at 3.4. If I would have told you that the Bengals were going to rush for 6.2 a carry and the Commanders were going to rush for 3.4 a carry, who would have won this game? If I would have told you that before this game, probably was going pretty well for Cincinnati, right?
Yeah, I think so. At the same time, that's why run the ball guy is wrong, because it doesn't necessarily matter.
Well, and it just so happened that the Bengals' response to it was selling out to stop the run, which meant they were vanilla and vulnerable defending the pass when they couldn't get pressure rushing for. And that's where it comes back to the defensive line. They're trying to give them help. They're trying to do things to help with the run game. And then there's just no pressure. Trey Hendrickson almost single-handedly won the game last week by creating havoc, creating pressures, drawing penalties. This week, he had a much tougher go of it, and it was much more apparent that when he can't win consistently, they have nothing in the pass rush. And Jaden Daniels was sitting back there for 3 seconds per throw on unpressured pockets. And as Troy Aikman pointed out on the broadcast, essentially playing 7-on-7. He was just standing in clean pockets all night.
Yeah, and that was literally the story. I mean, the story is Jaden Daniels going 21 of 23, being comfortable, seeing the field, making these awesome throws from a crisp, clean, comfortable pocket. And he was able to make plays with his legs when needed to. And I think that's what was so tough. And that's why I compared it to Madden. It's like, oh, okay, well, this isn't there. Well, I have time to get to this. Oh, well, that's not there. Well, I have time to go here, or I have time to step up, or I have time to move over. Oh, man, you're going to tackle Brian Robinson on this play. So I'm going to take it myself, and I'm going to get the 3 yards on 3rd and 2 or 4th and 1. Like it was just, it was that easy. It was like he had an easy button. And there was, he was playing against a Bengals defense that was in rookie mode. Mm-hmm. And he was like on all pro. And it's just, that's it. And I was waiting and waiting, because we've seen this Bengals defense do this, especially last year, where they get off to these awful starts. They're giving up yards, points, and then they adjust. And then they find a way to get a stop. And it might be ugly and it might not feel great, but you look up and they've gotten a couple of stops and they build a little bit of momentum. And I was waiting and waiting and waiting. And in the second half, after Washington went down and scored again, it's like, this probably isn't coming. And it didn't. You said it at the top. They needed one stop today. One stop, one turnover. And they couldn't do that. And that's why the Bengals are 0-3 for the first time in the Joe Burrow era, first time since 2019.
Stay up to date all year on the Cincinnati Bengals by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Bengals on your favorite podcast app and on YouTube. Coming up, is Sam Darnold the favorite to win MVP right now? Sam Darnold is currently making the most of his stop with the Minnesota Vikings through 3 games. Darnold ranks top 5 in the NFL in passer rating, QBR, yards per attempt, while leading the league in passing touchdowns. Locked On Dynasty football hosts Marcus Mosher and Kate Majuk discuss why Darnold is the current favorite to win NFL MVP.
But Kate, let's start with Sam Darnold, who, if the season ended today, I think would be a unanimous MVP. 181 yards passing, 4 touchdowns against the Texans, 0 interceptions, as the Vikings thrash the Texans to take a 3-0 lead on the season. Are you buying Sam Darnold in dynasty leagues?
I actually think if you're in a win now position, Sam Darnold is not a bad buy. So here's the thing. Sam Darnold is performing exceedingly well right now. I think there's no question that this is a big part of the Kevin O'Connell offense and what he's able to extract from Sam Darnold just with his offensive scheme, resetting the entire narrative about his career. And by the way, Sam Darnold, you mentioned MVP, his MVP odds right now, plus 2,500. So if you are really like buying that this Sam Darnold performance is the real deal, you should probably go smash that.
Literally, he's not the favorite. Now, he's got some decent odds. I'll give him that. Odds that are much shorter now than we thought they would be when the season started, to be sure. But the reason Sam Darnold has, and I will say it this way, Sam Darnold has a 0% chance to win the MVP, has no shot to win the MVP for two reasons. We know how good Kevin O'Connell is as a head coach, and we know how good Justin Jefferson is as a receiver. We also have years of bias for an entire body of sports reporters to overcome. There is no way they are going to look at Sam Darnold, who we know most famously for saying he's seeing ghosts. That's what he's most famous for in the NFL. He's seeing ghosts. The reclamation project in Minnesota with Kevin O'Connell and Jordan Addison and Aaron Jones and Justin Jefferson and elite offensive tackles and Brian Flores cooking up everything on defense. That guy's the MVP. No, you can't watch Josh Allen on Monday night and tell me you think Sam Darnold has a better chance to win MVP than Josh Allen. 0% chance. It's never happened. And finally, Chicago Bears quarterback Caleb Williams has been thrown to the wolves this year. An anonymous NFL GM spoke with The Athletic and said he doesn't blame Williams at all for his early season struggles because he's running for his life just like he was at USC last year. Wait a second. If that was Ryan Poles, they have to disclose that, right? Like someone has to say that. It's hard for me to take that sort of stuff seriously when coming into the year, everyone agreed this was the best incubation for a number one overall pick ever. That the offensive line was good enough, that the receivers were awesome, that this was going to be great. Jaden Daniels doesn't have a good offensive line either. In fact, one of the 3 or 5 worst in the league. He just completed 90% of his passes against the Cincinnati Bengals. I don't want to hear the excuses. Go play. If you're catching this episode after hearing your favorite Locked On show, make sure to subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. Also, if you're a new subscriber to Locked On Sports Today, we're here for you with the biggest stories in sports every day. Coming up on the next Locked On Sports Today, will the Bengals finally win a football game? So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Go to our video on demand. Click on sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.